Hey, this is Tom from Rocket Restorations, and today we are working on a 1970 Plymouth Hemicuda. It's a cool car. Really lucky to get to do this every day, and we get to work on Hemi cars and all sorts of cool stuff. And today what we're going to do is we're going to give a little tour of this car real quick, and then I'm going to show you how to put together a shaker hood, which is not easy. Also enjoy our bench over here, which is a 68 turquoise Charger. More on that later. But yeah, so this is a customer of ours. He has a small collection of Mopars, and we kind of just rotate his cars in and out. And he's had this one for a long time. We've had this in the shop a couple times. It's been a few years since we've seen it, and it needed a little bit of work. It had a little ding on the door that we fixed over here, and brought it to our paint guy Mark, and he did a great job getting all that fixed. It's kind of a cool car it's a real basic Hemi car. Like this is about as base as it gets for a Hemi car. It has a remote mirror, but it's a bench seat, column shift with a standard dash. You just don't see them like this. You know, everybody likes adding options and all that fun stuff. And all right, let me pop the hood here. Where's the release? Right there. And here's the engine bay with the awesome elephant motor, the 426 Hemi. Another cool part about this one is it was originally beige, which is kind of neat. So the BL1 here on the tag means it was beige, originally with a bench seat, black vinyl top. The owners think about maybe going back to that someday, but not for right now. The black looks pretty good on this thing. I had a vinyl side stripe at some point, which somebody removed. But yeah, it's a pretty neat car. So it's got a few things wrong in the engine bay. It's not a huge stuff. We're looking for some parts for them. Like, we could use the right booster for it, and there's a few other things that could definitely need a little bit of attention underneath here. But this customer drives his cars. He just likes to drive them. So if they're perfect, then you won't want to drive them. So all right, let me go show you how to put a shaker hood together. So what we have here is what's called the shaker base, and there's two pieces. So there's the outer adapter ring, which you can see goes all the way around and has a gasket on it which seals it to the hood. Then it has a base plate, and they designed it this way so it could fit multiple engines, because obviously with the 426 Hemi it's dual quads. Obviously with a 4-barrel it's just a single barrel, and they actually made 3 different heights for a 4-barrel. There's 340, 440, and 383. And it's real hard to find those 4-barrel ones because they just didn't make that many. The thing about Hemicudas is every single one came with a shaker hood. It was standard. So there's actually quite a few of these out there. I mean, obviously they're not easy to find. And then the other base they used was for a 6-pack. And this has the breather attached to it and has the correct fasteners, you know, to hold all that down there. And then you might say, hey, why are the scratches here? Well, that's because there's a ground strap on the bubble that grounds the air cleaner, because you don't want any sparks inside where there's fuel. So they have ground straps on a couple different pieces of these, and that's what that's from. And here's a look at the bottom. So these nipples here are for shaker drain hoses. So if you ever get caught in the rain and water gathers up here around the bubble, that's where the water goes down. They actually have a drain there to do that. And then they have a hole here for air to come through when the doors are shut on the bubble. You can see there's another ground strap right there. The other thing you'll notice, and you don't really notice this when you look at a Mopar, but see how offset that is? Well, when Chrysler built their cars, the motors are offset to the passenger side, so there's room for the steering column. I've seen some cars that have been modified to be like in Australia or New Zealand for right-hand drive. It's very difficult to do because the whole drivetrain on a Chrysler is way to the left, basically, way to the passenger side. And so you can really see it here. So if it was in the middle, it'd be over here, but it's way offset there. So it's in the middle of the hood on a shaker because it would look really goofy if that was offset. All right, so to put the shaker back together, the first step is to put the adapter on. And basically all it does is just go over the carbs. And there's two studs there that hold it on. And then you have the breather over here, which you put back in the valve cover, which can sometimes be a very, very tight fit. So the next step you want to do is, so right here is a crank right here. There's basically two cables. So this one goes into the car here, so it attaches there by the screw onto there, and then goes inside the car. And then inside the car in here, you have the carb air cable. Basically that does is if it's out, it opens the vents. If it's in, they're closed in the bubble. So you can get fresh air in, or if you're in bad weather, then you can close it up so you don't get water inside. So as I mentioned earlier, there's two cables. So this one goes here, and then the other one goes up there that goes inside the bubble. So I'm gonna put this on, but it's hard to do while I'm on the camera. So I'm gonna put it on, and then I'll show you a picture here. So as you can see right here, you put the screw on, but then it's slotted, so you have some adjustment here. You can't really do that adjustment until the top and bottom cable on, because you want to make sure it's adjusted, and you kind of need some help too to do it from inside. And then this piece right here goes on the crank right here, but I have to release the cable inside to bring it out to get it on there. So I just pushed the carb air cable from the inside of the car and see how much further out that is, and then that end right there goes on to the washer on the bottom. So, and just like that, the cable goes over the stud there, and then that one-way washer goes on top of that. All right, so now the next step is we're going to put the top on. So as you can see right here, you can't just put the bubble on. You have to secure the base there so it doesn't move. So this is the correct filter. It's orange with the round holes in it. Pretty sure this is a repo. And this is the right lid too. And there's actually several different lids. So the 6-pack ones actually have the holes further apart. On the Hemi one, they're a little bit closer together. And then there's another one for the TA cars and the A12 cars that, because they have an open element that doesn't seal the hood, they have a little wider lip on those to prevent water and stuff getting into the filter. All right, now we put the air cleaner on. I'm gonna get it over the carb. Make sure you get it the right way. And you gotta get the studs lined up and on, just like that. And if you notice here, we actually have two different washers, or two different wing nuts. And I think both of these are technically correct. We usually use the non-big washer ones, but and I should probably fix this, but it's underneath the shaker hood, so I'm just not gonna worry about it right now. It's what we have. I think that one's actually an aftermarket one. I don't think that one's right. And then when you tighten these two up, you firm the base up so it doesn't move. Because you gotta understand, like, this thing has a lot of leverage to move around. So if these aren't tight, it's not gonna stay that way. Okay, you don't need them super tight, just snug so it doesn't move. So I just want to show you one thing we found when we were taking it apart. So these fasteners right here are all different sizes, all different washers. They're the ones that came off the car, which are not correct. You want these. They have the anchor head bolts with the bigger washer. Having the bigger washer is pretty important because the shaker bubble's right here, and it's basically, I don't know, plastic. I don't know exactly what they call it. It's kind of a resin plastic, but it's not strong. So you definitely want the bigger washers on there. And we want them to be all consistent. They're supposed to be the black phosphate instead of silver, and they just look a lot better. But we're gonna put the correct ones on, which we get from a company called AMK, and we also carry in our store. So if you're ever looking for that, make sure you check out our store on eBay. It's Rocket Resto. We sell a lot of Mopar reproduction parts, and this kind of stuff we just keep on the shelf too. You know, we obviously sell the stuff, but you know, we use this in the shop every day, so we want to use it. And this is what they call the shaker bubble. So this is the fun time piece of it. So every single one has an engine call out. Obviously on a Hemicuda, that's right for a Hemicuda. And then there's a cable going out the back to run the doors. And then these are called the fresh air vents in the front that go inside there. We gotta be very careful with these. These are surprisingly fragile, and they're also very heavy because there's a lot of pieces inside here. So as you can see inside here, here's all the pieces. So this is the with the hole on the front of the lid that matches this right here. So if you do not have the fresh air vents open on top, that's where it's getting its air from when the car's running. As you can see on the cable, when I move it, it goes in and out, in and out. So there, the fresh air vents are open right here. And if you go the other way, it opens up the air to pull from the engine bay, which is obviously much warmer air, so you won't get as much horsepower from it. But you can kind of see on the back here, so these are the studs for the emblems, the fresh air vents right there, and that's the warm air door, and this is the fresh air door right here. And the cable goes through in there, and it's basically just a pivot, then it connects to that crank on the bottom of the base, the adapter ring, to open up the doors. So, and the only thing that holds this on is 7 bolts, the correct ones with those anchor heads on top. So we kind of joke around here, everybody wants a Hemi or a shaker cart, you have to work on one, and taking a shaker off is a very time-consuming process. Between getting the 7 bolts out, removing all the cables, it's kind of a pain to get to it. It's the same thing with a Hemi car. They're just very difficult to work on because the exhaust is tight. It's actually funny, the last 3 mechanics we've hired here at Rocket, the first job I made them do was do a starter on a Hemi, and I figure if they can do that, they can pretty much do anything. Another thing we mentioned before right here is another ground strap here. It's important to have these ground straps so there's no sparks. There's another one right here as well. And this has all the correct parts on it, which is really nice. You know, Chrysler, you know, if they could save half a penny on a part, they would. So having, if Chrysler spent the time and money to put parts like this on there, they're on there for a reason. They would not have done it if there wasn't a reason for it. So, all right, let me put this thing on. It's pretty heavy, so I'll show you, I'll get you again after it's on. The trickiest part putting it on is you have to get this cable through the base, which I'll try to show you a video of here in a second. Also wanted to show you, here's the part number on the bottom of the base here. So they cast that inside the bubble. Okay, so we set the bubble on top here. I can't do this while I'm filming. This bubble is super, super fragile and I don't want to drop it, and it's surprisingly heavy for what it is. But basically on the adapter ring back here, there's a hole right here you have to string the cable through before you can put it on. And it's a pretty tight fit. The end doesn't want to fit through here. This part doesn't want to fit through here, but you basically have to thread that through there to get the bubble on top to line up with the holes right here. Okay, so we fish that cable through there, and this will go to here, but what we're gonna do first is we're gonna bolt the bubble down. And what you gotta do is make sure this lines up with the holes in the bottom. And then remember when I mentioned earlier on the adapter ring, the drain hoses, that's the drain right there. So that goes through there, and there's supposed to be hoses underneath that go down past the alternator to drain the water down. So next thing we're gonna do is bolt the shaker down. All right, the next step is to put these bolts on. As you can see, they have an anchor head, black phosphate with a big washer. So generally what we do is we just try to get them all started first. And I cannot emphasize this enough, like these do not need much torque to go in, like hardly anything. This is plastic. All we're doing is holding this in place. But one thing I like to do is get these all started first to make sure all the holes are lined up. As I said, it's 7 of these to put them all in. So yeah, as I mentioned, you always want to start them first because I got all of them in except for the one back there, and that one wouldn't line up. So I had to start out with the back left one and go around. It said there's 7, so there's 3 on each side, 1 on the front, and then it is, as long as you got the correct bolt, which is a big assumption, we can never assume that. It's 3/8. I just use a socket. And again, not much torque. You just want to get it snug. And don't want hardly anything on there. All right, got all the bolts snug up, so everything's secure. So last thing we have to do is put the cable on the other side of the crank. And here are the pieces we have left. So that washer is the same one for the bottom. And then that clip is the same one, if you're familiar with Mopars at all, that is the same clip for a heater cable inside the car. So, and then that screw holds that on. So that clips the cable on and then it goes on. So it's really hard to see here, but there's basically a tab on top that goes into, and this goes down holding it, and the screw holds that on. So put the washer on here, hold the cable on, and then that goes in the hole on top, goes down, and this snaps over the bottom there. Then you just put the screw on to keep it from going anywhere. I mean, it's not going anywhere, it's snapped on there, but the screw just helps that. And we just put the screw in there, and then everything works. So you pull the cable in and out, in and out. I need to tighten that down still, but yeah, that's how it works. All right. So that's how you put a shaker hood on a 1970 Hemicuda.